We're following all the angles of the story. I want to bring in CBS News contributor and retired Army Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster, who, as you might remember, served as one of the national security advisors to President Trump during his first administration. H.R., it's always good to see you. I appreciate your perspective, as always. Break down what this is and what it may lead toward.
Hey, Major, it's great to be with you. I think what's really important is to understand the context. Really, you could say that the Islamic Republic of Iran has been fighting a proxy war against the United States for the past 47 years of its existence. And what you really saw until the Trump 1 administration was every U.S. president made an attempt at conciliation, bring Iran in from the cold. Maybe if they integrate economically, the Ayatollah's heart will grow 2 sizes bigger, and they'll stop their aggression against, the great Satan, the United States is how they call us, and the cancerous boil is what they call Israel, and their Arab neighbors. And I think what you've seen with Trump 1, when he made the decision to kill Qasem Soleimani, who was in the midst of organizing attacks against U.S. facilities in the region. This is in January of 2020. And with the U.S. joining the Israelis in the 12-day campaign with Operation Midnight Hammer against their nuclear forces, is that President Trump was determined to kind of break that cycle, recognizing that if we continue on this path, it's kind of the definition of insanity that attributed to Albert Einstein, doing the same thing, expecting a different result. And I think the Iranians, hey, they drove past every off-ramp here, Major, and President Trump, really wanted to, he prefers a deal in all these cases. Even in the strikes for Midnight Hammer, he'd given them 60 days. And so I think he recognized the intransigence of this regime, the degree to which this ideology, of hatred and violence drives and constrains those Iranian leaders. And what you've seen in recent years, but especially last month and up to today, is how big that gap is between the theocratic dictatorship and the Iranian people. We got to remember, right? They murdered over 30,000 people in a 48-hour period, Major. So I think all of this has come together. The regime's economic crisis that they brought on themselves, the environmental crisis. Tehran's about to run out of water, Major. Then you have the mass unrest and protests, the mass murder, the mass atrocity against Iranian people, and now this external military pressure and financial pressure. So I think these are the end days of the regime. It's kind of unclear how it's going to end, but I think President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu have made clear that's kind of what is really the only outcome that can break this cycle of violence that's been going on for 47 years and help bring peace to the Iranian people and to the region.
HR, I'm going to talk to our Executive Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto, in a moment, but I'm going to pluck some of the data that he has and put this question to you. I'm an average American, and I say, H.R. McMaster, I just heard everything you described. It all sounds very reasonable to me. But why now, meaning why this instant, and was I personally in America under more jeopardy today than I was 3 years ago from the Iranian regime?
No, but I think if there had been inaction, Major, that danger was being rebuilt, that threat to the United States was being rebuilt. And this is an aspect of the timing of the strike that has been underreported. First of all, as I mentioned, hey, how do you not answer the mass atrocity, right, that occurred? 30 to maybe 40,000 people murdered on this, gunned down, by the Basij and the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps. But since Operation Midnight Hammer, months ago, what the Iranians have been doing is rebuilding their nuclear program and racing to rebuild their missile arsenal. They've been flying in capabilities from China. What they really needed a lot were like chemicals, to make solid fuels, because these solid fuel missiles are a much greater threat because they can be just launched on demand. The liquid fuel, they have to be fueled, and then you can see that from the air and maybe strike them. So they were racing to rebuild their solid fuel missile capabilities. They're racing to build a lot of their other long-range capabilities. They had entered in to discussions to get supersonic shore-to-ship missiles from the Chinese, for example. And, the Russians have been sending them attack helicopters and armored personnel carriers. You know what that's for? That's to commit the next round of mass murder against their own people. So it is not as if the Iranian regime had become docile and was no longer going to be a threat. They're trying to reconstitute Hezbollah and trying to get some support into Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad. There's still the main line of support for the Houthis, who, remember, really disrupted shipping in the Bab el-Mandeb and into the Suez Canal. It disrupted the world economy. And so, hey, they had made clear with their actions what they did to their own people, what they're doing in the region, that they remained a threat, Major. And this was a window of opportunity to act. And again, President Trump gave him a shot. He gave him a shot at an offering.
H.R. McMaster, I want to share with you video that Central Command has just released of missile strikes in Iran. Let's play that. And can you see that, H.R., as I'm seeing it and as our audience is seeing it?
I can, yes.
Okay. This is, as I just mentioned, released just now from Central Command. Various U.S. military personnel, shipboard missiles, obviously aircraft flying off the decks of aircraft carriers in the region, and other kinetic strikes. HR, anything you are seeing that you want to add context or information about?
Well, I think what's really important here is the degree to which U.S. forces, and now combined with Israeli forces, have the capability to achieve such a high degree of simultaneity of strikes across multiple target arrays. So we've been discussing it here. You've been discussing it here on CBS for the last hour. So that those involve some of the regime targets, which we're trying to assess. What the damage was there to essentially decapitate the regime, go after the arms of repression to create more space for the people, the Iranian people, to determine their own fate. But then what you saw, and what I think was we anticipated, were strikes against anything that the Iranians could use to retaliate against us. So these are the strikes against the missile launchers, those solid fuel missiles, those liquid fuel missiles, the missile launchers themselves, obviously. I think there was a very sophisticated operation that came from multiple domains, land, sea, air, against those launchers. And then you had other targets like the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps Navy, because that could be used, maybe to lay mines in the Straits of Hormuz. So anything, any kind of arrow, that the Iranians have in their quiver, those first strikes went after those. And I don't think there's not any other force on the planet that could do this. It shows a very high degree of professionalism in our joint force, in the Israeli Defense Forces, and it also shows the decades of work that have gone on to create an integrated air defense system within the Gulf, because you saw Iran immediately retaliate against seven countries in the region, of which Israel was only one.
H.R. McMaster, I appreciate the time, sir, as always. Thank you.
Hey, great to be with you, Major.